Peyote, welcome back. It is our first recording in a bit of time. There have been lots of technical issues, but I'm glad to have you here now. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Ken.
Awesome.
How are you doing, bud?
No complaints, man. Pretty good weekend. This is the weekend or the Monday or Tuesday. What is today? Tuesday following the 4th of July. So got time with my family and feeling good. So no complaints. You went to a rodeo.
Yeah, I went to the rodeo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a peyote thing to do.
Not really. Actually, it's funny. I don't quite fit in. You know what I mean in rural Oregon. However, people are really friendly, and
Yeah.
everybody has spirit. Like
Mm.
sometimes events like that. It's kind of it's kind of cool. Like it's refreshing sometimes, right? Because like there's the MC guy, right? And when it's time to start the wave, everybody starts the wave,
Mm-hmm.
And when it's time for the DJ guy to turn the volume off so people can sing the lyrics, I think every single person in the stadium sings the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like they have a lot of spirit, so I think almost anybody can pretty much go and have a good time. um so even if you haven't been, or you think that, oh, like this is so culturally different, I think that anybody can actually go and have a good time, eat an elephant ear,
Oh
uh
yeah.
eat a piece of pizza,
Yeah.
watch somebody try to stay on a bull, watch
Yeah.
the girls barrel race, so yeah.
On a related note, and I promise you this is going to relate to our topic for today, and that is I'm planning this week to take my girls to a minor league baseball game. And one of the things I think is cool about minor league baseball is the quirky things that happen that you don't get when you go watch Major League Baseball. Some of the kind of more community building and social aspects of being in the audience, the interaction, and some of the other things of that nature. So I certainly can appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Now.
like, Humboldt had a minor league team. I think they were the Crabs or something, and
Mm,
they it's cool having a minor league team in town,
yeah.
whether it's small town, big town, whatever. Like you can kind of just go, and it's pretty intimate. It's still high level,
Yeah.
but you're like kind of up
Yeah.
close, and
Yeah.
it's still a snack stand.
Yeah. 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 Kind of like like high school, college ball,
Yeah.
in a way. Now, that being the case, we're talking about you today for the purpose of being able to kind of identify all the things that happened in your life that eventually led you to become the person that you are, that's doing the work that you're doing. And I know that baseball was critical to that. You started playing baseball as a very young person, correct?
Yeah, I played a lot. I mean, I played a lot. I'm from Southern California, so I mean, it's wasn't unheard of to play, 100 games, 150 games per year, and be practicing, right,
Yeah.
almost every day, right?
Mm,
Like if any of you guys have played out there, um, not sure what level you went up to, whatnot. I was played pretty competitively.
yeah.
But man, like there's a lot to it, that people don't see. It's a team sport. It's different than football where you play like one game per week, right? Like there's that
Sure.
one game. Maybe when you're younger, you play more than one time per week, but generally, what football season you have like, you know, 10 to 15 games, like 10 to 15 weeks, right? During the season.
Yeah. 8 games. Like in high school, we played 8 game schedule.
Yeah, 8 games, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
so there's a ton of practice that goes into it, right? But like the games, um, then there's so many plays in each game, right? There's so many
Mm.
plays in each football game, right? There's so many different plays. So you always have an opportunity to kind of like redeem yourself if you didn't do something right the previous play, right? You're
Right.
like if that guy pushes you over or knocks you out of the way and gets by you or whatever, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do better on the next play. Whereas in baseball, it's like, man, the best hitters in baseball are batting like 300, right? Like 1
Yeah.
for 3. Yeah, not even 1 for 3, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's, even some of the best home run hitters aren't even batting 300, right?
Right.
Like, they're batting under 300. So it's a game of failure, right? You're always failing, right? And that's you just become kind of, like, used to it. However,
Yeah.
the things that you do well, you can kind of remember. And then you're graded heavily, like, on the defensive end, right? They have errors, right? So, like, you're always graded on whether something is a hit or an error, how well you're doing, like, stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing is just maybe maybe culturally or upbringing-wise, right? Like, it's a team sport. In order to play catch, you need 2 people, right? You need another person there. In order to hit, right? In order to practice hitting, you need another person, right? Like whatever it is, you need somebody throwing the ball to you. In order to pitch, you need a catcher, right? Like so on and so forth.
Right.
And then you have all these people in a dugout, and you travel around, especially with travel ball, playing that many games. You travel all over with the same people, sometimes new people, to different places, all the time, different counties, different states, different countries. Even I played
Mm.
down in Mexico, um, and it, you're just you're just cracking jokes and kind of knuckleheading, but
Yeah.
also like cheering the people on because you want to win, and you know that people can fail, so you're sort of just you get used to people, like your teammates just failing, right? Because like that's like it's
That's
a
the game.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard, and so like you're always like, oh, you'll get them next at bat, instead of like you asshole, like you know what I mean, popped
Right.
out, you struck out, yeah. So it's I think people that come out of that type of team sport, I think that they're pretty like encouraging. I think that egos are pretty healthy because like, I also wrestle, right? I've done Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a really long time. And I think that that also helps with like having a healthy ego and whatnot. But in baseball, you never really have like a rival. You know what I mean? Because even like your second string, who might want to be first string or something, like they're going to play if you're injured, right? Or if you're tired, if you played like if there's 4 games in a weekend, maybe you play 3 of them and they
Yeah.
start on the third, you know what I mean? So it's never, they if they're especially for catcher, I play catcher, like maybe your second string is catching the bullpen, right? While the pitchers are warming up. And so like even your second string is like a very important part of your performance, right? Like because you can't just catch bullpen, catch 4 games a weekend, go.
Right.
There's like little rivalry, more camaraderie, and more encouragement for your fellow human, and stuff like that. So that's I rambled about baseball. Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you that. So after I'm going to say after maybe your ace pitcher that eh, you're maybe the heart and soul of your team, maybe even despite your ace, and maybe even despite your best batter is the catcher. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the catcher is the most important position. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're strategizing too. A lot of people don't realize it. Like we played so many games and so many of the other, we were like a very, very high, like one of my travel ball teams. We were like one of the best travel ball teams in the country. And you remember the different batters, you remember how they stand, and a lot of times like coaches, managers out there, they're calling pitches. I would generally call the pitches, right? And so I know how my pitcher is doing. I know like what he can give me. I know if he's accurate with this pitch. I know his strong pitches. I know the weaknesses and strengths of each batter, right? I know where they're standing. I know how to trick them. If the pitcher does exactly what I'm asking for, then we're gonna do pretty well. And I had a few games where there was like a subpar pitcher, but pitched like a one hitter. You know what I mean? Because he was just doing everything that I asked for. You know what I mean? And we were able to get through. Nobody expected that out of him. All of a sudden he pitched the best game of his life. And I'd go out there to the mound sometimes and just crack jokes. Try to encourage him, stuff like that. But I think the catcher 100%. It depends on what the manager allows the catcher to do, right? Because if they're smart, there's some just like jock athletes that actually aren't super, intuitive or observant of what's going on, that just catch the ball. You know what I mean? And then there's other people that can look, and you know what? And to give people the benefit of the doubt, dude, like you've played like competitive one-on-one games against all sorts of people that maybe you were like, smarter than or not as smart as or whatever, and everybody has like a few tricks up their sleeve. You know what I mean? You're like, everybody's got a little something. Even my daughter, it's like do that, and so everybody's got a little bit of that in them. But so to answer your question, catcher, I think most important position.
Cool. Yeah. So that's going to come back later. We'll get there. So what else did you do as a small kid? You told me that citrus was an important part of your life. At an early age.
Okay. On our last thing, when my internet cut out, you were asking like, what's your earliest memory? And I thought walking around and picking oranges, in the neighborhood, because citrus grows in Southern California pretty easily, right? It thrives, and so we just have really good oranges just in everybody's like front yard and whatnot, right? So
so school, through the 8th grade, how would someone describe you?
Oh gosh, I don't know how somebody else would, but I played a lot of baseball. You know what I mean? And so like if it's after school, you're practicing on the weekends, you're practicing or playing, right? And so there's other things that kids are doing, like they're skating, they're like riding their skateboards or doing things, and they might not be able to relate as well to somebody that plays like over 100 games a year. You know what I mean? Like, so you take I was a pretty nice kid. You know what I mean? I wasn't a bully. Maybe I was guilty of a couple little things here and there, but I think deep down, and overall consistency wise, like I wasn't bullying. It's different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm part Japanese, right? And I think I talked to you about this before. Like, there's really not very many Japanese people. You know what I mean? They're really
in America, right?
Dude, they're really in America. Excuse me. There's not very many Japanese Americans, right? And like there's some, maybe like every now and I don't know, in your high school if you can remember like a few students with actual Japanese names, not Chinese, not Korean, not, actually Japanese names.
That's fair.
And so, growing up, Asian in Los Angeles, you have shows, at least growing up in my generation, right? Like you have who are the main actors, right? You have people like Brad Pitt. Yeah, you have people like Will Smith, right? Like cool people, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But like
Yeah.
you can never expect, like when you're like watching these shows growing up as a little kid, you can never expect to be like the Brad Pitt, or you can't expect to be the Will Smith. I wanted to be like Will Smith, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
you're sort of relegated to be like the Jackie Chan or something like
Yeah.
that. So you kind of,
Yeah.
uh especially in school, all sorts of different. Los Angeles is a big melting pot, but I think overall you kind of just gravitate towards, like uh, other Asians, maybe other Asians. And so,
Yeah. Makes sense. For sure. Like as a person who grew up in a very, very segregated city, like it's weird because, I lived kind of two parallel lives. My earlier days, I went to very diverse schools, but by the time I was just attending my neighborhood schools, et cetera, like I can go a week without seeing a person. Like I can only see black people all week, literally. I
oh
could if I
wow,
depending on where I was, right? Like yeah,
right,
certain level of segregation. You stay in your neighborhood, you go to the neighborhood school, you go to the neighborhood store, you go whatever, and you could just whatever. But for that same reason, especially as later on, I went to college, for instance, and there's very few black people in the like I didn't go to a historically black college, so for that reason, like, hey, it's another black person. Hey, hi.
oh
It's kind of like,
bro,
hey, I
you're
should
telling
probably
me.
go hang out.
I was at the rodeo last night, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this is cool. Luckily, Oregon is pretty like, it's 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 pretty mellow. There hasn't been
Yeah.
like huge migration of people like into the Pacific Northwest from any particular culture. There's like some Russians, and so there's a lot of people from Hawaii, move to
Mhm.
Oregon for some reason. They go to
Mhm.
Oregon. But yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
So you're in high school. Um,
Mhm.
what did you entered high school? Oh, wait, hold on. We talked about your baseball, but you surfed and you beached. The beach was
Oh,
very important to you.
yeah, I wasn't a huge surfer, but most of the people growing up in the town that I grew up, they go surf. There was like surf PE, but I think the most like notable thing is that probably most of the summer, or most of the year in general, if I wasn't playing baseball, usually you're just down at the beach, right?
Mhm.
Doing something, which is usually nothing, like maybe just surfing or body surfing or swimming around or just like baking in the
Yeah.
sun. Because what else is there? I mean, that's like the one place where there's not really anything around you
Mhm.
to come and you know be dangerous or bad or whatever, except maybe some drowning or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, like so I think parents would I think it's okay, to just leave their kids at the beach, right? Like, where else are they gonna go? It's fucking desert. Not, like,
Yeah.
what are they gonna do? They
Have
can't.
you ever encountered a shark, whale,
No, I
dolphin?
haven't.
No.
But
Mm.
sometimes you feel some things like swimming next to you and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Yeah. I'm glad you're so
scary.
calm about that. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it should
Oh,
be.
yeah. I mean,
I want you to be more afraid, Peyote. I want you to be like
oh, it is.
terrified.
I mean, it
Yeah.
is what it is. You know what I
All
mean?
right.
We're
Yeah.
we're all creatures.
Yeah. Except for some of us want to eat others of us, and there's that.
Yeah.
So so high school, man. What was your focus of study? What did you think you were going to at that time when you entered? You probably already knew you were going to college one day, and you thought you'd study what?
I have no idea, man. Um, I did not, dude. I was like, I would walk to school with like a pen.
As long as you could play baseball, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I had like a pen and a notepad.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's how I'd walk to school. Um, I was okay. You know, I was okay. I did well in tests and whatnot.
Mm.
I can focus, I can remember things, this and that, but like, yeah, I wasn't extremely right, not a super interesting thing. I
Mm.
just think the way that you know, formal educate, public educate, I don't know, everything is just a little bit strange.
Mm.
You know, the way that it's set up, people have unreasonable expectations of what they think like their education is worth, and how their education will contribute, you know, to society.
Yeah.
You know, and they're all being taught generally the same stuff with the same perspective, you know. And it's even politically, you know, a lot of teachers, liberal arts type colleges, you know, whatnot, they're all teaching the same perspective.
Hmm.
Very
Yeah.
similar. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Very similar.
Adding
Uh,
the liberal to the liberal arts. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, which is, you
Yeah.
know, it is what it is. Like for
Yeah.
instance, at the rodeo last night, right? You have like this whole group of people that are probably on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but they most likely also, or I won't speak for them, you know what I mean? But many of them have lots of skills, right? And
Mm.
I think the school systems and whatnot, like they never stress the importance of having skills, you
Yeah.
know, or building skills, because that can really get you through in tough times, right? It's actually having skills. You teach people to like think about things and question things and this and that, and then it's like, okay, well, nobody's going to be able to work on a team because everybody like thinks they're smarter than everybody else, and you know, everybody's used to debating each other. You know, they it's not, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It
Absolutely.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't, I don't know if it teaches them the right things, you know.
Yeah. 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 So you graduate high school and you don't go directly to college.
I didn't. No, I didn't. I kind of just hung around. I was a little bit young for my grade, I think.
Mm.
Like I turned 18 after I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Whereas most of the people were 18 their senior year, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so
Yeah.
I kind of hung around and just did some stuff, traveled, you know, did some music stuff, did some art stuff, and just kind of, you know, whatever stuff.
And in terms of art, we're talking about graffiti in part.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of graffiti. That was a big part of my little, I mean, because goodness, that was a big part of my life there.
Yeah. Let's talk about I'm not trying to record evidence. I don't know what the statute of limitations are, either for you or myself. I had a very extensive past in graffiti. It's
You
one of
did?
the things. Yeah, I did.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll hopefully talk more about it offline. But
Right
for
on.
me, I was I never got caught. I was caught with materials, but I never got caught in the act. I never did any time over it. I've been picked up and harassed a bit for it. In Chicago in the '90s, there was this big program where if you got caught, either there was big list, and if you got caught, you were added to this list, and if you got found guilty, then you had to do like 100 hours of community service and this and other, and you had to participate in this graffiti blasters program where you went and removed graffiti.
Oh,
It was the worst like punishment for a person who doesn't want to take down, like obviously is anti taking down other people's work, right? But what was it like in California? I mean, I know there's the New York scene, there's California. I imagine any place there's a big city. New
well,
York, LA, Chicago. What was your situation?
I'll tell you what, dude. Southern California, it's dry.
Mm.
It's dry, so you can get in and get it done because the paint is gonna dry.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I'm sure in some other humid areas, even during the summer or something, right? Like it's humid, it takes a while to dry. So like we'd always try to save money. So we'd have oops paint, we'd get a lot of oops paint, from the store, and roll out our bases and then cut in with cans, as opposed to like you see a lot of people that they have cans, and they just
Cans of Krylon, man. Yeah,
well, they're just like filling, they're
yeah.
filling all their letters, and I'm like, God, dude, there's like this much paint in each can. Like, how are you gonna, carry? You can't carry like 50 cans around with you just so that you can fill in. So like, definitely a lot of oops paint and rollers. Get the base done really quick. Come back, cut things in.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So dry is really important. But I'll say like probably the biggest impact was like my big homie, my buddy, rest in peace, but he was pretty kind of like magical or something. You know what I mean? I remember when I was 18 and he was like 28, 30 years old or so.
Mm.
We'd be going, bro, this guy was like so hardcore, so hardcore, like would sleep on a roof in like Lawndale or something. And Lawndale's on the up and up now, I think.
Mm.
So, not hating you there.
Yeah.
But and his buddy, so like the WAI crew, they did like West Coast Customs, the logos and everything, right, for like Pimp My Ride. Like, so they're pretty well known graffiti crew. There's only a few like CBS and whatnot. There's a few out there. Obviously, people's talents and techniques get better and better. People really spend a lot of time. But back then, like the really cool graffiti, there's only like a few crews doing it. Like, how do those people do that with spray cans and this and that, right?
Yeah.
And so we would, man, this is so crazy, but he was given this a VW van.
Mm.
Yeah, one of those Westphalia vans, and so we had like ladders on it, and like the whole van was like filled with buckets, like gallon buckets of paint and all the tools needed to like just paint like a house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he was like so about his faith and his spirituality, right? That he's like had this feeling that everything would be provided, and if it wasn't, then it was not meant to come into existence. And so we would we would run out of gas, okay, and then we'd push that Westphalia to a gas station, like down a hill or something, right? Push it through traffic all over Los Angeles, dude. Like I mean, everywhere, like East LA, the Valley, like everywhere where you could paint. We'd be pushing that van around, trying to get strong, right? Because we both did Brazilian jiu-jitsu. and everything. And so we'd be trying to get strong. So this is like training in a way too, like pushing the van around Los Angeles all hours of the night, no sleep. And we get to the gas station, and then we just wait for somebody to give us money to fill up the gas tank, and sure enough, sometimes people would give us some money for some gas. There we are. And then we'd have enough money to go someplace, right, in this Westphalia van and go paint some more. And then so we could pull up anywhere because the roof of the van is flat. We could pull up anywhere, put a ladder on top, climb up on things, whatever. And people would give us gas money. They would give us paint. They give us all sorts of things. All city, man. All city for real.
Yeah.
And and so we go all over, man. We'd even go up to we go up to San Francisco, we go to Seattle, we go all up and down the West Coast, begging for gas money at different gas stations and pushing the van around. Pushing the van around. It was so nice, dude, when you get to like a hill.
Yeah.
And then you can
except for you have to push up the hill.
Yeah. But like when you get to a hill and you can just like push and hop in and put it in neutral and then glide down the hill. You know what I mean? That was always really nice to do. So anyway, that was kind of the thing. Like even with food, we go to we go to a Chinese restaurant or something. We'd always get saucy rice, because we're like, what can we beg for here? They'll give us rice, I think, right? Like if we beg for rice, like we're hungry, give us rice. Because I'm like I didn't look like super rough or anything. Like I was just coming into their store, but we could always ask, will the universe provide this rice and sauce, and just put sausage rice, eat the sausage rice, and that would be the meal.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, right? But like this is actually it was a lot of fun. Like living like that was a lot of fun because people go on journeys, right? Like hundreds of years ago, like people go on like journeys and they just kind of live from here to there to there to there, instead of building some type of fort. How can you like satisfy like that little nomadic gene that you have inside, if you're not just going around and doing something here and there.
Well, you've already exposed the fundamental flaw of that, right? So what fixed that, or if you want to call it fixed, what stopped that was agrarian culture that allowed people to stay in one place and feed themselves.
Yeah.
So what wound up happening is you realized, oh, wait a minute, this isn't working out. I can't feed myself.
Yeah.
But hey, nonetheless, it sounds like a great time. One of the things that I did, you raised an interesting point. There was a couple of problems. There was the police in this program, and they would bring out so many offenders to go clean all the graffiti that it didn't make sense to do a whole lot of fill-ins and stuff. Like so for us, we might do the outline on one day and come back the next day to fill it in, or something like that. But my all city hack was the buses, not outside. I would sand the bus windows, like scratch bombing, so that the buses, when they move them to a different route, they're being dispersed to other parts of the city. So I just hit all the windows. They were much harder to replace windows on a bus versus cleaning paint off the side or stickers or what have you.
Yeah.
So it was a Chicago graph hack.
Nice.
It was cool.
Cool. Well, man, when Flickr, like bring back Flickr.com, because that's all.
Yeah.
Once you get the picture and it's on the internet, that's all you really had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it's like they can take it down, whatever.
Yeah. And this is also at a time like slightly after high school for me was the time where was that the Rhino Echo was actually paying people to to
Go paint.
contribute to marketing. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never heard about that, but that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But moving forward, what gets you ultimately to college?
To
Like you didn't go
college?
directly. Yeah, so you didn't go directly. You lived your best life. You bummed gas and you bummed rice, and you said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to college. Or
You know
what
what?
was it?
I didn't even know if I wanted to go, but my across the street neighbor was several years older than me. Super, super smart. You know what I mean? Helped me with a lot of perspectives in life growing up as well. Just really, really smart guy. And he went to this one school. And so I just went and visited him. And I'm like, okay, I'll go here.
I see.
Yeah. That was
That's how
it.
you made your life choices. Just,
Yep.
they went to the one school. It was nice. They had a good food court, and you're like, hey, whatever. I'll
Yeah.
go here too.
Pretty much.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had only did a few quarters, dude, before I got put on like a mandatory year leave, and then got put on, and then I came back, and then got put on another one. So I just never, I did like just a few quarters of college. So
Was that academic or social that got you in trouble?
it was a little bit of both. It was a social thing.
Yeah.
It was like a teacher, like I had one faculty that thought I was like trying to mess her class up or something, which I wasn't, I don't know what was going on. And so then I had to meet a certain credit requirement for the next quarter. And so this is so stupid. All right. Okay, I had to meet a certain credit requirement, which means I had to get a certain grade in my classes. I'd been getting full, I've been like if 16 credits or whatever, I've been getting 16 out of 16, like basically A's all the time. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick something easy. So I signed up for art classes, right? Like I did printmaking and jewelry or something as like art class. And dude, have you ever done any printmaking?
Never. Never.
Okay, so you take a piece of copper or something, right? And you take this little needle called a burin, and you basically poke little designs into it, and those little scratches, right?
Yeah.
The scratches and the little dots. If you look on a dollar bill, you'll see a bunch of little dots and scratches and like stuff like that. That's how you make a print, right? To make like a dollar bill or something, and that you can use over and over and over again. And
like casting or whatever, right?
you're just like scratching, and those little scratches are you poke, you make little dots, and those little dots, they hold ink, right?
Right.
Yeah. And bro, that is like insane. So I was like, fuck, like I'm gonna get removed from school if I don't finish these things. So I'm in the studio with like a little magnifying glass and a needle, and I'm just like, I gotta finish school. And then at some point I was like, you know what, I cannot do this, like this is too crazy. When you just know, like your soul knows you're in the wrong place, right? Yeah, you're just not fulfilled. So I'm like in the studio, I'm like, you know what, I just can't, like I'm not gonna, I don't have the discipline, man. You know what I mean? I couldn't. Yeah, so I just left. I left school because of that.
You left, and then what?
I went to Spain.
España. Why?
Trying to learn Spanish a little bit more than I already did.
Wait, you could have learned it in California, man.
Yeah, but
it's not as fun, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't too bad back then. I don't know what it's like now, but apartments, like renting a room on Craigslist, in Barcelona, like it's like 300 euro a month or something. So you could go get like 3 months in a room, like $1,200 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like food, not very expensive. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, just went.
Any of this? Go ahead.
Went to Spain. A lot of graffiti in Spain, by the way. Barcelona, my guys, the El Andin shop, they Montana Paint is Spanish, right?
No, I didn't
So
know. Yeah.
yeah.
When were you ever romantically involved in any of these periods, like high school, college?
Huh?
Like, were you in a committed relationship with a person, a romantic relationship during that time?
Yeah, yeah. I had like a high school girlfriend, really, really
Yeah.
lovely uh, girl. You know,
Yeah.
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 And then college, not so much.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not so much. Yeah.
And it was was she either a fan of baseball or a fan of graffiti? Like, which was she into whatever you were into?
Not really. I think ultimately we're pretty different. I mean, I'm like, I don't drink alcohol. Like I get high like climbing up the freeway overpass. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think ultimately maybe we were just a bit different, but she sure was a sweet person, and a good she's a good person. There's people that just have really good hearts.
Yeah.
And and they're nice. They stick up for what they believe in. They have a sense of justice. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna go to like the club and drink and you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not yeah.
Different
So
personalities. You grow up and you realize that, as you get older and you get more opportunities, some people want to do things that maybe you're not into. I get it.
yeah.
Yeah. So you leave Spain at some point.
hmm
Did you come back to the States
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
right
I
after
came
Spain?
back to
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest. Um Came back to the Pacific Northwest. I think I tried to do one more quarter of college because at that point I think my mandatory year leave was done.
Mm,
Um
mm.
that might have been when I signed up for the art class after I came back. I was like, I'll pick something easy so I don't get like kicked out again.
I see.
And I
Yeah.
think that's when I signed up for the art class, and I was like I can't deal with
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
So when do you get into inventing, creating in industry? What do you when does this start?
Always, man. Always, you never know what you can try to do. So even in college, like I had a class, it was I was basically it's it's hard to explain. Like the class was so my school, you could basically create your curriculum, right? You
Mhm.
could create your major. And so this is going to sound crazy, right, for a college student, but my class was, or what I was getting credit to do, was essentially be a consultant for startups, right? And I
Wow.
was getting
Yeah.
college credit to do that, right? And so I think one of them was these these people wanted to build out a tennis club, like a
Mhm.
15 court tennis club or something, and so I was like consulting. I know that sounds crazy, right? Like a kid, like consulting for a 15 court, like a whole facility, this multi-million dollar facility or whatever. But that was
Yeah.
kind of like what my class was. There was only me in the class, or there was one other person, a girl that she was going for her PhD in business, which is kind of like a funny thing because most people just go for their MBA, right? Like
Right. Right.
PhD in business. So the only
Yeah.
places you can go to work after that, probably like being a college professor or maybe Deloitte, or whatever,
Yeah.
however
Yeah.
you say that name, being a
Yeah. Deloitte
consultant,
teach. Yeah.
essentially,
Consulting and teaching. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah.
you know. Um, so that's kind of what, one of the classes was. And so I always had, was always trying to do different, different startups and whatnot. Right. So,
First successful venture. Any detail that you want to share? What was it?
Oh goodness. Well, there's a couple, things early on,
Mhm.
but I think that I really found my groove in real estate.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just like this goes for anybody out there. It's been done. You're not reinventing the wheel. You just have to follow the steps, and it takes a little bit of time, but you can make it happen. So probably real estate was probably the best. Used to flip houses, starting maybe when I was like 24. Um, and so I've done like every phase of construction, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
um, framing, roofing, drywall, painting, electrical, plumbing, tile.
So you did
Um,
all the work yourself.
yeah, done a lot. Yeah, pretty much. I
Yeah.
mean, had a crew and had different subcontractors come in, but yeah, I've set up scaffolding and replaced windows,
Yeah.
done siding, exterior siding, done exterior trim,
Mm.
interior trim, finished carpentry,
Yeah.
uh, built barns, built gazebos, have stood up posts, have built, you know, thousands and thousands of feet of fence, uh, have run machines, graded land, prepped lots. Um, then I build a house,
Yeah.
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 So you started in residential and worked yourself to commercial.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. And then I kind of transitioned into the like transitioning residential homes for commercial purposes for a foster program, right? So
Do you want to speak on that? I know we've talked about that a bit offline. Do you want to speak on that?
yeah, yeah. I guess one of the startups I did the seed funding for, and was a co-founder for a foster care program um, in the state of Oregon. Uh, Kind of pretty hardcore. Our designation, um, our classification was IBS, which is intensive behavioral support, which is like one step down from emergency psychiatric.
Okay.
Emergency psychiatric is like 24-hour, like padded room, style, no sharp, nothing, no
Mhm.
furniture, like stuff like that. Um, and so uh, I would buy housing for CSEC victims, commercially sexually exploited children. So, like human trafficking victims. So, female 13 to 17. Um, my co founder, that was her specialty in population. I never really got to pick the population. I think it gave me a bit of anxiety. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? But I was like, all right, let's go. And I remember when I was setting up the first when I set up this house, bought a house, put sprinklers in, got furniture, bought 14 beds, 14 nightstands, 14 everything, plates, all sorts of stuff, right? And basically furnished an entire house. Um and set it up. I remember walking through with the state, one of the state workers,
Mhm.
and they're like, this shower thing needs, or this towel rack needs to be like, you know, it needs to fall away from the wall in case somebody tries to asphyxiate themselves. I'm like,
Mm.
you know what I mean? I was like having like a little mini anxiety attack. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Yeah.
was like, what am I doing? But no, it turned out really well, dude. Probably I think I was 27
Yeah.
when I founded that uh project, and probably by the time I was like 30, probably fostered like 50 kids, you know.
Mm.
Um and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Could have been even more fun. Very difficult during COVID. You know, that
Yeah.
first however many months of the pandemic was like
Yeah.
really, really hard. Mainly because like, you know, other places like Florida, the schools were still open, stuff like that. You know, so the kids like had to stay home from school.
Right.
So we had to get teachers, we had to up our staff because normally our day shift, you know, when kids are at school and whatnot, like maybe there's a kid that just is like, no, I'm not going to school today or something. But normally our day shift was pretty light, just administrative type stuff like caseworkers and whatnot working. But during COVID, it's like, holy, you know, you got to up your staff. They can't, everybody has to wear a mask.
Yeah.
You know, it was, that was tough. Can't go anywhere, can't do anything, can't, you know, be within 6 feet. We're like, wow, this state is putting some crazy, unrealistic expectations on us. So there was a number of programs that shut down. I was kind of keeping it afloat for a little bit, and then it was just, I think the stress got to my partner, and so we're just like, you know, it's too difficult,
Mm.
too difficult. So yeah, but good good time, super rewarding, and you know, super rewarding, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. This might not be um uh, in terms of thought the progression, but you got us to 2020 at least. So let's all this was to get to how do we get to Yasha, right?
Oh.
This whole thing, this whole starting with you in baseball as a small child and growing up and all these experiences. So where does the idea for Yasha come from? How much time went into planning it? Let's start there.
This is gonna sound crazy, but so, you know, there's people out there that are like, oh, somebody has a leg up, right? Or like somebody's privileged and so
Mm,
they can do it. So I have a friend and he actually works on the projects now. He always thought that. I tell him like, no, you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. And I know that sounds like a little bit crazy. And yes, we're a bit privileged, like being where we are and whatnot. So in a way, like I kind of just wanted to do it from scratch, right? So
mm,
the gosh, there's so where do you start? Where do you start? So Yasha is like a completely decentralized project, right? Like the 12 people that got into the same room, the 12 people that got into the same room um did not know each other, you know, did not know each other. So none of the teams. So this sounds dumb, but I basically, you know, I'm gonna say but everybody like, you know, came together, like they chose to come together. But I basically added like a bunch of random people into a group, and I was like, hey, let's launch a token. And they're like, okay, you know, like sure,
mm,
let's launch a token. Um, trying to figure out a name. My daughter really likes the show Inuyasha,
mm.
and so named it Inuyasha. Um, and so on and so forth, and I think I didn't have to put any money up. um you know, raise the money decentrally, right?
Yeah.
Raise the money decentrally, decentralized team, decentralized projects, you know, so on and so forth. And so I think that if you have a good route and you can kind of figure out your way through, um it's possible, you know, it's possible to do it. Yep.
12 people. Teamwork.
Yep.
So for those who are not familiar, what does Yasha do?
Yeah, it Yasha is a decentralized incubator, accelerator program, and like launch pad, right? And so projects teams, entrepreneurs, they can submit their project, preferably pitch deck style, so that we have something to show other people instead of just like talk them through it. And I mean, we can pretty much do whatever, and we can, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, right, and you need like some development, right, or something, or you need some web done, or some graphics, or you need help with your overall business strategy, or you need access to some marketing channels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Car coming. Yeah, if you need some access to some marketing channels, or whatever, community support, but and then as well as making a raise, right, raising money for your project. That's where Yasha really kind of comes in. That's what Yasha does. So far, in the last, since Yasha's inception, we've donated probably $1 million to charitable causes. Our projects that we have incubated and launched have reached a cumulative peak all-time high market cap of over $400 million. We've raised millions of dollars for projects. I think our pre-sales, this is historic, our historic pre-sales have yielded in excess of 150,000%, which is over 1,500x.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I think it's a good project, man. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of projects out there and a lot of things that, like, you think maybe you'll get a moonshot with, maybe you won't. I haven't seen anything as consistent as Yasha. You know what I mean? Not every project is going to be 100% boom, success, blockbuster hit. Okay. Not that won't be, you know, like every single project. You know, the statistics on successful startups is like pretty slim. You know, you got to expect like 70 to 80 to 90 to 95% to not really do amazing. And then those 5%, you know, successes, maybe one of them is like a unicorn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that would essentially pay for all the other failures, right? Plus some. So that's always like the general strategy. You're not like throwing darts, you know, at something, at a wall or whatever, seeing what sticks. But you have to be realistic. And so what we've tried to do recently, with a couple launches, is really like show, you know, these teams that come in, they have to be self-sufficient. They need to develop their own community. They can't expect like, oh, you launched from Yasha and like everybody just rotates into a project, you know, because that can be difficult. You know, if we don't build our communities, if project teams don't come in with their own communities, right, for their launches,
right,
then it's like they're only expecting to make tax off of you know, people inside of the Yasha ecosystem or whatever, right? And so that's like not always the greatest, you know, like you have to come in with people that want to be part of their projects as well, not just, you know, otherwise we're just recycling, right?
No, absolutely. I fully agree. I think full circle in this conversation, we get to two things that have been instrumental in your life, and that is the team building aspect. I think one of the things you talked about with baseball, you put a bunch of people together. You don't necessarily know them from the beginning, but you develop those relationships and trust, and everyone has to do their job. And I think it's easy to see how that has related to the way that Yasha has been constructed.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's important to that is we know as sports fans, but you said very specifically, you know, baseball is a game of failure. And with that, for me, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm quite sure you feel the same way. That there are certain things that you learn in failure that you just don't learn in success, and those failures are necessary to help you grow in ways that maybe success doesn't give you, or too much success up front may not give you. And so you, like you said, you might have a 95% failure, much worse than baseball, right? Much worse than hitting a baseball. Um, but ultimately, you have to learn to be okay with the failure. You're implementing new things, and you're trying to get a particular outcome based on a number of factors, and you don't know what exactly you need to adjust. So you're always working. And in a similar vein, you've recently changed the Yasha contract. Can we talk about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Yasha V3 guys. Maybe we go V4 one day, I, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, it's basically it's a cliff contract with some reflections. I think the main thing regarding tokenomics is that it's launched at close to the bottom of ETH, right? In general,
Yeah.
we've had some heavy capitulation. Obviously, we'll never be able to time the perfect bottom, but launched close to the bottom of ETH, and it's tough. With the Cliff project, the thing that it needed, right, is volume and tax, like high tax, to feed the LP, so you have a super thick LP, so that you can continuously burn the LP, right? There's been a couple times where Cliff was able to develop some revenue, right, whether it's NFT uh, situations or marketing for other projects with the World Peace Token launch. Was able to
Right.
market, and then we saw a positive impact on the chart because of that, because that tax or that revenue was able to go back into the LP, and Budosh was able to utilize that revenue, right, to make a positive impact on the chart. With Yasha, we're pretty consistent, and we launch projects. Yasha takes 1% tax, or it takes a percentage of the raise, if it's not a tax token, and so that tax can go back into the Yasha LP. Right. And so it always has. Yasha's been pretty consistent with its revenue. Doesn't make a ton of money. You know what I mean? It's not like an excess, like where everybody's getting paid out all the time. In fact, our V1 token, and this has been a methodical thing, V1, V2, V3, and for very specific reasons. But it always has fairly consistent launches, right? Where we can take a tax, go back to the Yasha LP, burn it, raise the floor price, take more tokens out of circulation, and create that deflationary type mechanic.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah.
And there's going to be staking.
Yeah, well, we have our staking contract done. The idea, I think, is that, so guys, Yasha is a DAO. Okay, most everything is pretty much discussed, asked other people's perspectives on, and we try to come to a conclusion as a group on what is happening. A lot of times, I would like it to be even more so that way. And I try to encourage people to come out and speak up. And I know that Billy just got an author. He's now an author on the snapshot voting for the DAO. So other people can make some proposals. Stuff like that. Like, it would be nice. And so, yeah, for the staking, one of the things is, like, you kind of ask the DAO, like, hey, do you want staking? Yeah, we want staking. Like, okay, let's build, let's do some staking stuff. What's the staking for? It's like, oh, well, those can be the tiers, for the, people should be, a lot of this stuff that comes out of Yasha, guys, is because it's comes from the community, right? Comes from the community. It's like they don't want people to sell or heavily swing trade the chart in and out of pre-sales, right? And so what's their solution? Oh, well, in order to get a pre-sale, they should be staked, right? And it should have some type of time lock, right? So that at least they could commit, so they don't just buy the token. So they don't just buy the token, so that it goes up with the upcoming pre-sale, and then as soon as they get the pre-sale, they dump the token, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, so that was like the community solution to trying to stop like heavy swings. But I will tell you that charts need swing traders as well as traders in general. Like it needs trading. If
Yeah.
everybody is just holding, you know what I mean? If everybody is just holding, there's not a huge churn rate, right? And then people who are just holding, people capitulate eventually, or they get bored or whatever, or they take profit and they sell, and then the people holding are like, what's going on, right? And then it's like you have a thing of like never ending selling, right? So it's instead of people trying to trade here and there, right? So that's kind of the deal.
And for clarity, the stake, so there's ETH for reflections, but the staking will be Yasha.
Yes, stake your Yasha tokens. There's reflections in ETH just from the transaction volume on the contract. It can pass through. We don't have a ton of volume, you know what I mean? So it's almost like, but I don't know. You guys, the DAO, there's several thousand people in the DAO. Like, go make some volume. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. We could bring deal flow to the DAO. At the end of the day, it's a DAO. You guys got to go make volume, bring more people into the DAO. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe the next whitelist is only people that bring more people in. You know what I mean? To get the whitelist, right? So,
Yeah.
grow the community.
Yeah. On a kind of closing note, you've done some charity. Let's talk about the charity work that you've done inside of, or that Yasha has done or contributed to, that also relates to some of the other things that you've shared about your personal life.
Yeah. Well, we raised a lot of money for fish.
Yeah.
For salmon habitat restoration, or just fish and wildlife. Unfortunately, we're still holding that money right now because the CCA, something with the state of Oregon, we have a place that we'd like to donate to, but they move like very, very slowly, and they don't accept crypto just yet, and so they're like trying to figure out how to accept crypto. However, one of the people in the science DAO is also a fish biologist, Keith, and he has a place to accept crypto. We had committed a large sum towards the Sandy River hatchery, and so like I want to see if they'll accept crypto. Like they want it, they just are trying to figure it out. So I want to give them a little bit of time before just like yanking the commitment out of there. You know what I mean? Be like, hey, you guys have taken like too much time. Like we have to donate somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, and then so there's that, and then we raise money for a program called Headstrong, done by Herb, one of the people in our things, and we're still awaiting a business plan from him, what he's going to do with the funds. We had one of our DAO members, one of the people in the DAO did some due diligence, and I think that they're helping him along with that. Because the last thing we want to do is just send, few $100,000 or whatever it might be to somebody's private business. You know what I'm saying? So like, if there's no business plan, or if you're out there and you see this, dude, like we want to send the money. It's been a while, but you have to make a plan so that we can be transparent with everybody about like what it's being spent on and whatnot, right?
Sure.
So I think that the Herb's mission is really great. It's after school or it's an exercise program for youth. Um, he's a really great, like, he works in social work, really great dude.
Mm.
I think that he was maybe struggling or getting frustrated with developing a plan. Sometimes when you're writing a grant, have you done any grant writing before? You've been part of that process. I'm sure you have.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You almost need like an itemized list of everything that the grant is going to, and that's
Yeah.
all that we. And it can't be like, it can't be like 6 squat racks. Like, cost this much. You know what I mean? We can't just buy $300,000 worth of equipment. I think. I don't know, but I'm just gonna let the DAO figure it out. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, the DAO holds the funds. I don't even have access to the funds. I don't have access to whatever. I'm not gonna do the due diligence. Let the DAO
Yeah.
figure it out. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah. Yeah, so there's those 2 projects, and then the community decided to launch a charity project called the Care Drop. Now the token's called Pause. And that one's super cool. They raise money for Ukrainian refugees, um, just for the time, or any refugees. Doesn't matter what side. Everybody has trauma.
Sure.
And so that project's ticking along. The community's doing the development and the literature. And that's what they wanted to do. So there they go. The CareDrop
Yeah.
platform, I think, has a lot of potential. So hopefully we'll move through and get some of that development done.
Well, I think we have to leave it here. We've gone a little bit long today,
Yeah.
but it was a lot to cover, and we have a lot to cover next time. So we'll leave it here. And thank you all for listening and your support. Make sure you subscribe and share this with other folks that are interested in what Yasha's doing. We're going to be providing a little bit more information going forward in terms of news and content, and still giving you some insight into different aspects of just our thoughts, and of course anything that is of interest to the crypto space.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Yep.